Although we do not have to hear directly from Elon Musk as much anymore, the devastating effect that he has had on our politics is still around today. And of course, the biggest and ugliest example of that is Donald Trump, who Elon helped get elected with hundreds of millions of dollars and some unseemly tactics that are now blowing up in his face in a criminal scandal rocking Elon Musk. We are going to get into these crimes, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the criminal election scandal Elon Musk is being hit with, I want to start with a different attempt to undermine our elections that Donald Trump is carrying out against mail-in voting that was called out by Gavin Newsom and Jasmine Crockett.
What President Trump said yesterday as it relates to mail-in balloting, where he now is asserting that he's got his lawyers drafting an executive order and he's going after mail-in ballots, something that he is very well known for having used himself in Florida. He was an absentee ballot, meaning he was someone who went and got an absentee, mailed that in like millions and millions of Americans. By the way, 80% in the last big election in California, folks used mail-in ballots, overwhelming number. What do you make of this latest effort by the president?
Yeah, so first of all, I think that California, number one, is a direct target. We know that California has expanded access to the ballot box in ways in which some of us get frustrated, to the extent that you do have so many mail-in ballots, and you definitely had some nail-biter congressional races that came down to, the last batches being counted. And we know that this postal service isn't necessarily the best run under the current leadership. And so, yeah, it can be frustrating because it can make it to where if there's tight races, it's going to take us a little time. But I think that is what democracy looks like. It makes sure that you hear from everybody, no matter whether or not you're home at the time, no matter whether or not you are encumbered, because if you leave your job, you have fear of retaliation, even though legally they're not supposed to. Whether or not you are a caretaker for your children or your ailing parents, it allows you an opportunity to participate. And what they have decided is that participating in elections should just be reserved for the privileged few. They don't want it to be something that allows the masses to participate in.
Donald Trump will always, always, always work to undermine our elections, not just because he wants to stop people from engaging in politics that fundamentally MAGA wants us to be pessimistic, but he always wants to be able to muddy the waters, claim victory, especially ahead of 2028, when we know Donald Trump still wants to run for an illegal third term. And it seems like the biggest impediment to that might not be the law, because Donald Trump doesn't care, but J.D. Vance is getting in his way, which is interesting considering he just said this about Musk before we get into the criminal scandal he's dealing with.
Yeah, so I saw the story, and as far as I can tell, the story is completely fake. I've never talked with Elon Musk or frankly any other donor about 2028. I do think that it would be a huge mistake for Elon to go forward with a third party. And my argument to him is, whether you like it or not, you are now perceived by the far left as on the side of the American right. You believe in law and order, you believe in closed borders, you believe in economic growth and prosperity, you believe in making things in the United States of America. The idea that Elon is ever going to go back to being sort of in the middle, where Democrats and Republicans both like him, that's just not going to happen. He is perceived as being on the American right. And so if he doesn't like things the Republican Party is doing, my advice to Elon would be try to fix the Republican Party. Try to push it in your own way. Disagree with me all you want. Disagree with the President of the United States, but don't pretend that you can make a big difference with a third party.
We've been talking about this a lot on the show, but J.D. Vance has been making quite a few appeals to Elon Musk, who it appears like is going to be funding his 2028 run, which kind of creates some problems for Donald Trump. Now, of course, he could just squash Vance with MAGA if he wants, but then why is Vance not really defending Trump on Epstein? Why isn't he doing everything he can to help him? Is it maybe for Elon, who Trump would never help again? I don't know. But this election crime scandal from Elon does add a bit of color to that all. Musk must face lawsuit brought by voters he convinced to sign a petition and $1 million a day election giveaway, judge says. A Texas judge rejected Musk's request to dismiss the lawsuit brought by a group of voters who say they were misled into signing a petition and handing over personal information for a chance to win $1 million. A judge in Texas denied on Wednesday Elon Musk's request to dismiss a class action lawsuit against him and his political action committee brought by a group of voters who participated in his $1 million a day giveaway leading up to the 2024 election. Over the last few months, lawyers for Musk and America PAC have sought to get rid of the lawsuit brought by voters in battleground states who claim they were defrauded when the tech mogul and his PAC misled them to believe if they signed a petition and gave away personal information, they could randomly win $1 million. In reality, Musk and his PAC had pre-selected people to win the $1 million in exchange for a spokesperson contract, meaning those who signed the petition had no chance of winning. While lawyers for Musk and the PAC argued that there were red flags in their petition announcement that should have tipped people off that they were unlikely to win the $1 million, the judge disagreed. The court finds it plausible that the plaintiff would rely on Musk's assertion that $1 million would be given out randomly, notwithstanding his or America PAC's later statement, Judge Robert Pittman, appointed by former President Barack Obama, said in his order. So not only did Elon Musk clearly and deliberately mislead people into giving away their personal information, but he was trying to convince people, and maybe plausibly successfully convince people across battleground states like Pennsylvania to vote for Donald Trump because they thought that they could win $1 million. If people thought that they could just win $1 million, there's no reason why in a contract that was very vague, they didn't believe the contract was stipulating with their signature on the petition, they also needed to support Donald Trump as well. That is originally what got Elon Musk into the trouble. Now, I don't think this is the only reason he is now supporting J.D. Vance and is clearly backing him behind the scenes. Reports suggest that Elon wants to scare off other candidates. It's, of course, because he wants J.D. to come into power and give him all the same little gifts, all the same little carve-outs, all the billions of dollars that Donald Trump did, but maybe not create so many problems with his public persona. That's what he thinks is going to happen, but it's not. Because MAGA is going down with the ship that is Donald Trump, and that will start happening during the midterms when we finally get a chance to vote against this administration. And two people who are making sure that we're fighting every day against that again are Gavin Newsom and Jasmine Crockett, and they were calling it all out right here.
Are you sort of meeting this moment because you need to be held to a higher level of accountability because you need to call out what the hell's going on?
Yeah, well, Governor, you've been involved in politics for a very long time. And with that, you have seen a lot of different types of politicians. People enter this arena with different goals. And I can tell you that I was not born into a family that was super involved in politics. My parents voted for sure, but they never aspired to be politicians. They never pushed me to be a politician. I never took one poli-sci class. When I was in college, I was not interested whatsoever. And so I think every once in a while you do run across some of those that have literally said, this moment calls for me to step up and who knows what will happen. And ultimately, that's the story of me being involved in politics. Even by the time I got to the state house, and I was so happy to be there. It was the closest state house race. I was the barely state representative in the state of Texas. I always tell people I was a thank you Lottie into the state house. I won my election by a mere 90 votes. I think that was the ultimate number. And so I won by 90 votes. And I was an underdog. I was outspent 5-1, but I was not outworked. And I was able to convince about 300 volunteers to get involved in a state house race, which was unprecedented, but people believed in my vision and they believed in my grit and grind. And it was only after one term in the state house that I was called up to the federal level, which I had no intention whatsoever of going to. That was not my aspiration, even though so many people use these positions as stepping stones to get somewhere else that they're trying to get to. In fact, I remember people telling me like, oh, you can't be a state rep. You got to go be like city council first. And I was like, why? I was like, I don't want to do city stuff. Like, I want to do the state stuff. So why would I do that? And to me, it does a disservice for the people that you're serving if you're literally just there trying to get somewhere else. And so when I got called by my predecessor, along with the former ambassador under Clinton, and so many other people were calling, and I tell people all the time that God has to yell at me to get me to move. But they were like, you should go to Congress. And I was like, no. I was like, I just, barely got out of this election. I don't want to sign up for another hard one. And I knew it was going to be difficult because my predecessor is the only person that ever served the district. She was actually in the Texas Senate, and she was on the redistricting committee when the seat was created. And so she then ran for the seat, and she served for 30 years on the federal level. And so there have been people waiting for decades to run for this seat. And so there ended up being 10 of us. But I believed that for whatever reason, God was really saying, no, you've got to do it, even though you don't really want to do it. And never did I imagine a scenario where I would be one of 435 and a freshman where anyone would know my name. When you talk to the average person and you ask them name 5, name 10 members of the House, they can't do it. So why would I think that somehow I would end up in this situation? And as I told the story at the DNC about my encounter, my first in-person encounter with the vice president, I was really struggling with whether or not I really had done the right thing. I mean, I had gone through a lot. I had won. I didn't really know that I was really fitting, and I just didn't know. And I still struggle. I'll be honest. I still struggle. I don't struggle like I initially did, because when I go home or even when I go other places, whether it is kids that have no ability whatsoever to vote, but love me and are telling me that they're watching me, and I'm like, what is wrong with your parents? Because I sometimes say things that I shouldn't.
This is how we have to fight, how we have to communicate, and how we have to exist on every platform all the time, every single day. Elon Musk has shown that owning social media platforms, owning information, is the best way to, maybe illegally, influence elections. And now he's dealing with the causes and the problems that he's caused with that. If we want to fight back, we have to be everywhere all the time. That's why we're building this show. That's why supporting independent media is so important. And if you want to do that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.